So this is pretty much how I kind of learned how to do it all by myself. So Fruity Notebook, yeah, cool, Notebook. All right, so pretty much there's like a 4-step process that I follow and everything. So first we have what I like to call sound generation. Second, we got sound movement. For 3, we got sound sculpting. Oh wait, no, yeah. So got sound manipulation. That's what the second one's called. Yeah. Then the next one's called sound sculpting, and last one is called sound enhancing. So that's pretty much how it goes from the top to the bottom: sound generation, sound manipulation, sculpting, then enhancing. So for step 1, sound generation is literally just generating the sound. So pretty much you can take a regular basic shape. You can take any of those, or you can take like any wavetable you got. So pretty much you're just generating the sound and everything. And what you're trying to do in this section is pretty much find like the certain type of timbre or tone that you want to make for like either a bass sound or a type of synth sound that you want to make. So for example, let's say we're trying to make it like a bass sound or something. Okay, we'll use this one because this is actually one of my favorite wavetables I made. So let's just say I want like a deep tone like this. So that's the first part done. Sound generation. Now we got sound manipulation, which is now we're gonna add movement to it and stuff. So how do we add movement? Well, we do that with the LFOs. So we can have like one LFO here, and this can operate the level, so that way we have like a rhythm to go with it. And you can adjust what you want, like go in half time or a bar, depending on the type of sound you're going for. And we can even add another LFO onto the wavetable position, and that'll create even more movement over time. And you can even put this on half to make it go like a 1-2 bass. Okay, so cool. We got some cool movement and stuff. And if we want to add some extra movement, we can use some of the warps. So we can go like, let's just say like a bend plus, and have that morph over time as well. So pretty much all in part 2 and everything, we're just trying to get as much movement as we want to give it as much character that it can get over time. So now we move on to part 3, which is now sound sculpting. This is where the filters come into play. So let's just say, let's pull up a high pass 12. So pretty much what these filters will do is pretty much sculpt the sound in a certain way, which is why I call it sound sculpting. And you can use any kind of filter you want. Now that we have 2 filters in Serum 2 and everything, we can get very creative. Like let's just say, for example, let's add like a Combs filter. So we can add that and then have that route to filter 2, and we can have that be like a high pass 12. Just so that way we can take off the low end and we can add a sub on there, which will add one of the LFOs on there to actually, so that way it goes along with the bass. And then we can even add one of these LFOs or even create another LFO if we want. And we can have this go onto the filters, so it creates even more movement. Now that we're done with sound sculpting, this is where we go on to the final section, which is sound enhancement. This is where all the effects and everything else comes into play. So normally what I would go with, just to start off, is pretty much what I would like to call the Holy Trinity. You get a hyperdimension, you get a compressor on multiband, and you get distortion for your soft clip at the end. And then for the distortion, you don't really have to like mess with the distortion that much unless you really want to give it extra grit. That's where the drive comes in. But if you just want to really bring the sound up to a considerable level, just use this level section right here and pull it up. Pretty much just by having these 3, you pretty much have like your whole sound ready to go, because it's already like super loud and just ready and stuff. But if you want to keep adding even more character to your sound, that's where you can add stuff like, let's just say a phaser. And I highly recommend putting all of this before the compressor and the distortion, just so that way it all gets kind of crunched together and you can really hear everything come out. Let's put the depth down at 1. Ooh. And just to control the hyperdimension a little bit more, you can add the same LFO right here onto the mix, and I can control it as it's going with the beat. And if I want to add something else, let's just say a splitter, like a low high splitter. So go put those down here. Then for the high, let's go for a bode. Take the width down, direction all the way up, range to about like, let's just say 300 or so. Ooh. Now that's a really deep bass. And just to control the top end a little bit more, we can add a extra filter on there, put that below there, and it could just be like a regular MG Low 6, and we'll put that with the filter LFO, just so that way we have more control over the rhythm as well as the top end, so that way it's not just ringing out all the time, because the multi-band compression will definitely cause a lot of ringing out because you're pretty much compressing a lot of things together. So if you want to control that, definitely just have like a low pass on the high ends and you'll control it. The only time I would recommend just not having a low pass is if you're doing like tear out and stuff, because tear out pretty much you literally can just go crazy for how hard you want your basses to go and stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole process right there. So pretty much we go from sound generation, sound manipulation, to sculpting, and then to enhancing. So we pretty much start out with just finding the sound that sounds good. Then we add some movement to it. We sculpt the sound using filters or whatever the heck we can find, even using like the bends, minus and pluses and all that stuff, pulse waves. You can even use FM to get a different timbre or tone and everything with your sound. And then after you're done sculpting it out, you just go to the effects and just start enhancing it with whatever you got.